Hello, people. Yes, that's right. I'm back from a very long hiatus. You might have noticed that there's a change in scenery. There's this cabinet right in front of me. Truth is, I'm on vacation. That's right. There's this thing called studying, and after my finals, I decided to travel elsewhere. So currently, I'm in Hong Kong to buy this. And you might be wondering, well, it's just an old iPhone. This. I literally just flew 14 hours from San Francisco just to buy an iPhone. Oh my god. I need help. I need mental therapy. Like, there is something wrong with my head. And you might be wondering, why am I buying this iPhone 2G? Well, this is actually on 1.0. If you don't believe me, I'll show you right now. I actually got it for around 80 bucks from this guy called Ray. He's an absolute fantastic dude. Just go follow him in the Twitters. But yeah, 1.0 for around 80 bucks. So for this video, I decided I might as well take you on a magical journey. That is the iPhone 2G on 1.0. And with me is this iPhone 5 on 6.0. So we can actually kind of compare the two. So without further ado, let's begin. Now let's take a look at the iPhone hardware. So you get this 3.5 inch, wow, this is a small resolution, 480 by 320 display for a pixel density of 163. It's good back in 2007, but of course in 2010 they had the Retina display. There's this earpiece. Of course there's no front-facing camera. There's of course the home button with this chrome accent. This top here is a little weird. So of course you have the sleep wake button. You have this SIM card tray which takes full-size SIMs. That's right. It doesn't even take like mini or micro SIMs. It takes full-size SIM cards. And this headphone jack right here, it will only work with certain headphones because of how recessed that is. I don't know if you can see it properly, but it only really worked with Apple headphones, which thankfully that's what I have. But a lot of people with their own headphones with bigger plugs just aren't happy with it. So they actually released a $30 dongle for the headphone jack just so you can use it. Apple is truly ahead of its time. On the side here, you actually have a mute switch, which is actually a pretty decent function. Like, mute switches. Not a lot of phones, even at the time, have this. And, of course, not a lot of phones now even have this. So, yeah, it stuck around and just never left the iPhone. Of course, you have your volume controls. You have this 2-megapixel camera. Just 2 megapixel, just the camera. It's a fixed focus camera, which means that you cannot tap to focus. There's also no variable focus, which means that there is really one focal length. If you're out of focus, you're kind of SOL here. It also cannot shoot video. But you do have this very nice chromy Apple logo design. And underneath this aluminum, you have this plastic trim piece because, you know, it's a phone. It requires cellular reception. On the bottom here, you do have your 30-pin iPod connector. You do have a microphone and speaker combo, both occupying one grill only. But yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, it's a small device, and yet the hardware is okay. It certainly looks unique, but for 2007, it really does look the part. It doesn't really look too far ahead of its time, and I think it's to its benefit. Okay, enough wobbling. You all wanted to just see the iPhone OS 1.0 software. Now, this iPhone didn't originally come with 1.0. My friend Ray actually downgraded from 3.1.3 down to 1.0. Basically, it's all fair game now. These old iPhone OS versions, you can just downgrade, do whatever you want, and store a white door. But this phone has been painstakingly downgraded to 1.0, as you can see here. And I thought it would be interesting to show you because not even a lot of people have 1.0. A lot of these iPhone 2G units, which is, of course, discontinued after 1 year, ship with the iTunes Music Store, which means that it is one version higher, which is 1.0.1. So, yeah, basically, this is as primitive as iOS gets, is as old as iOS gets, and with me today is this iOS 6 iPhone 5, just to show you what the start and end points are for Scott Forstall's iPhone OS. Okay, so iPhone OS 1, they basically have nothing. You cannot install apps. There's no voice memos thing. There's basically nothing on the phone. What you see is what you get. Like literally 16 apps, you can't even move them. So all this phone can do are these 16 functions. So let's start from the top left. Let's start with SMS. Now remember, the original iPhone did not have MMS. It can only send SMS, and you can't really just type anything because I have no contacts, but also because it's just surprisingly limited. You can only send text. You cannot send photos, of course, because it's an older version. And compared to modern iMessage, it really is not that different. The UI is not that different, but of course you have this camera button that you can send images to. So I guess it's great, but this has MMS, and of course iMessage, where this one does not have like literally nothing. It goes on your cellular talk and text plan. Next up is Calendar. That's right, Calendar allows you to look at dates, look at events. You can look at the day view, and you cannot actually go sideways because the original iPhone did not really have landscape options, which this one has. Ha 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 ha. And it's a running theme for a lot of these original iPhone OS apps, because not until version 3 did a lot of apps actually gain this functionality. So yeah, of course you can go to the day view, which is now on the bottom in iOS 6, and even in the UI is actually not that different. Really, it's just, I have a custom time zone here, of course, but really it's just not that different from 1.0 to 6.0. So yeah, that's Calendar. Okay, so we're gonna skip right through photos. We're gonna take a look at the camera first. Remember how I said that this is a fixed focus camera, which means that there is literally no focusing on this camera, and you can only take photos. It's not really fast at all. It's actually kind of slow. Remember, video recording is a selling point of the
This
iPhone 3GS.
shooting video.
It's just funny. Of course, you don't get a camera shortcut. That won't come until much later. And yeah, you can tilt your device to shoot in landscape, but that's basically it. And of course, if you want to look at the photos, sometimes you just disappear. Yeah, of course, I have these two recent photos. Of course, you have arrows because people don't know how to swipe back then. But sometimes photos just disappear. It's really, really odd. They just disappear. I literally just took this 2 hours ago, but it just kind of disappeared from memory. Also, there's a quirk, so because I mentioned a lot of these apps don't actually have a landscape mode. If you actually tilt the device, you can still look at it in landscape, but you can see the actual bars don't actually rotate, so it's just so weird. I mean, if you have an image, like on here, if you rotate, the bar just rotates with it, so it's just so weird how restrictive this thing is. Now, I just want to preface this next app by saying that, yeah, it's of course gone on iOS 6, but this is the YouTube app, and because this iPhone is so old, it literally could not connect to my Wi-Fi network, so I unfortunately can't show you any videos, and even if you're on a Wi-Fi network, you cannot see any videos because they actually yanked the cord on the license, so you can't really look at anything. Even if it's connected to Wi-Fi, you cannot watch YouTube videos on this thing. But this is a Google licensed Apple-made app. Like, they literally licensed it to Apple, and then Apple engineers made the app for it. So it looks very, very Apple and not very like YouTube. Of course, you have the much nicer YouTube app on iOS 6, which also does not work. Like, I cannot watch videos on this thing because they end their license on this. But, two very different styles. But, yeah, you can tap and you can look at most recent. You can search for videos. You can bookmark things. Anything you want. Old YouTube. Stocks really is just that. Stocks. And yeah, as bare bones as it gets. And again, another one of those apps that aren't really different with just stocks on iOS 6. It just didn't really change much. You, of course, get nicer charts, and then you get this 3-panel news thing. But who cares about stocks? Maps, which on the original iPhone is of course infinitely more preferable to the dumpster fire that is Apple Maps. So you get this map view, you get this satellite view, you get this list view, and you can actually look at transit directions. Well, not really transit directions, but more like point A to point B. You can set a start point and an end point, but the original iPhone did not have GPS. So it really only connects to Wi-Fi networks to try and triangulate, which is of course way inferior than GPS. It's just not very accurate at all. It is a half solution, but even then I'm just being generous with it. Weather! Like, weather. It's just weather, of course. A lot of these apps haven't really changed, which is probably why people say iOS is stale after a couple of years. But even on iOS 6, which works with current Wi-Fi standards, the Yahoo weather app actually, got pulled because, it's Yahoo. They got bought out like 500 billion times. Things just stopped working. The servers got taken down. And so if you're on this device and you cannot even download an app, your weather app is officially done. There's no way to check the weather on this thing. And it doesn't fare very well on iOS 6 in 2019, but still, it isn't much different. The clock app, like clock, you can look at Cupertino times. You can set an alarm. You can set a stopwatch, which shows the lap on iOS 6. And you can set this timer, and even the latency is very, very noticeable at times. It's just not a very responsive device. This is a 256 megabyte with I think it's a 128 ARM processor, which is so freaking slow, even by 2007 standards. But it's the UI that got a lot of things right that ultimately just didn't require much fixing down the line. Calculator, that's right, it's a very, very bare bones calculator, certainly not as advanced as this calculator, and yeah, it's a kind of slow calculator, and also you can't really multi-touch with this, so unlike you can do that kinda, but still you can't. Also too, while you can rotate to landscape to get a scientific calculator, the original calculator does not support any landscape orientation because of course there's no landscape mode. And besides a few visual refreshes, it kind of stayed true to character, but of course a few more buttons are present. But you just get this very weird blue user interface that's supposed to evoke some sort of older calculator. Notes! You can type notes on this. It's weird. The keyboard is not really that great, and sometimes it just doesn't detect anything. And of course, if you tilt it sideways, it doesn't really do anything, because of course there's no landscape mode for this. And I would say, like, it's not really changed that much, but there's really nothing to it. You can send it to people, you can email it to people, you can still tap to swipe, but of course there's no iCloud integration, of course no landscape mode, which is just kinda odd. The Settings app is actually kind of a neat indicator of how far iPhones have really come. So, yeah, Bluetooth is kind of front and center, personal hotspot is kind of front and center. There's this usage, which is just right in the middle. And if you want to access Bluetooth, you actually have to go through general Bluetooth. And then only then you can find your Bluetooth devices. And of course, Bluetooth is backwards compatible, but I don't exactly have a Bluetooth device that could connect with either of these things. So, yeah, that's a little unfortunate. But it really is just the same app with things that just moved around. But this Settings app is, of course, exhaustive, so that's it, because you couldn't really install anything at all on this really, really old iPhone versus this iPhone 5. You can install a few apps. that will allow you to change the settings on. Okay, so actually, let's take a look at the dock. Now, of course, you can't really move the icons, which means that these 4 things are arbitrarily shoved at the bottom. So let's just start with the phone. Of course, this big thing is visual voicemail, but I don't have a SIM card, of course, on this iPhone. But it's just the dialer. You get this weird dialer. I probably called someone in Memphis, Tennessee. Contacts, that's the only place where you can get contacts versus a dedicated contacts app on iOS 6. Yeah, and then recents and then favorites. Basically just the same phone app, so with a slightly different looking dialer. Mail is mail. It's mail. That's all you need to know. It's mail. Safari is actually one of the more interesting browsers because it's so old it wouldn't even work with my current Wi-Fi. I actually went out and took a look at some sites, and yeah, even on Wi-Fi it just doesn't load pages very quickly, and a lot of times it doesn't even render fonts and images properly. Of course, web standards change over time, but my iPhone 2G, if I were to use it today, I really couldn't look at much sites at all because of how much RAM it just takes up, and of course you're restricted to only 8 pages, and there really is no sharing option. You can only add a new page here, you can add a bookmark, you can reload, versus this slightly weirder new toolbar thing. It's just very, very weird. And finally, basically, a lot of people have been dreaming of this, the Ipod app, which is basically a miniaturized iPod inside of a phone. So you have playlists, you can look at your artists, you can listen to a bunch of songs, including accessing this now playing option. And of course, you have to tap to bring this up because it just doesn't show as a default. Now, videos are actually crammed in here as well. So all your iPod functions, videos, audiobooks, and everything are here. You can download videos. You can have audiobooks and podcasts and I think ringtones. But of course, in this version 1.0, you really have to sync all of that down here. There's no option for you to download right from the device. It wouldn't come until 1.0.1. So yeah, that's basically the original iPhone. That's all 16 apps, and of course, in 2019, it's impossible to use this incredibly featureless phones because, you know, we're spoiled by apps. But just shows you how much the phone has changed, especially when you have this freaking behemoth in 2019. Oh, it doesn't recognize my face. Ah, look away. Yeah, but when compared to so many features, it just weird. And of course, this is an iPhone 10, so they're both released in years ending with 7, so I guess that's cool. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this iPhone 2G thing. Like, I literally picked this up for $80. Please remember to follow Raymond on Twitter. He's a very, very cool guy. I'll have his link in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this trip down memory lane because next month the original iPhone is going to turn 12, which officially makes it a teen. I know, it's very, very weird. Anyway, I'm gonna end the video before it gets even more weird. So I hope you like it. If you do like it, hit the subscribe button to see more videos. Like button is also down there. There's tons of stuff down there. Usually there's, like, back in the old days, the subscribe button is way up there. But anyway, just share it with a friend, I guess. And I'll leave you to it. Bye bye.